What's happening, everybody? How y'all doing? Well, hey, I grabbed a picture. I want to put it up here real fast, and I want to start right out of the gate, and I just want to get where we're going because I really believe that tonight. And let me just say this. Let me say with a smile on my face and with joy in my heart. I really believe, brothers and sisters, there's something a whole bunch of you need to hear tonight, and I really believe it's straight from the Father's heart. And I think that it's something that you don't just need tonight, but you need for your future, and you don't know it yet. And so what I want to do is I want to unpack a little lesson, a little story, a little uncapping of Jesus. And as you guys know, Jesus came, and I know you know this week a lot's come in your brain so far, but you know that Jesus came, you know that Jesus loved, you know that Jesus made promises, you know that Jesus, in the last moments, he got all the guys and gals were in the room as well, and got them around the room and said, hey, I just want you to know as I'm headed to the cross, you're all going to fail. And they did. But he didn't. And then there was resurrection, and then there was power, and then there was life. And yet tonight, I want to skip a little bit down the road, just a little hop over the resurrection story. As a matter of fact, Jesus is going to show up to a lot of his disciples. He's going to show up about 7 times total before the story that I'm going to give you tonight. 3 times specific to this group. But there's a face-to-face encounter that still needs to happen. And you can't miss it. So I've got a picture. As a matter of fact, I just took about 70 college-age students, and we'll just leave this picture up for a little while. Just took them to this beach. And this beach, I don't know if you know this beach or not, you probably don't. I've been over there quite a few times. I spent a lot of time overseas and kind of equipping both local leaders and global leaders to do, doesn't matter. But anyways, I love Jesus. I love studying Jesus. I love following Jesus. If it's really true that if we lift the Son of Man up and all of our eyes go to him, that he will draw all men to himself, then I want to know Jesus, y'all. I feel like we know so much about church and so little about Jesus. I want to know Jesus. I want to know the power of his resurrection. I want to know the life that was in his veins. I want to know who he was really talking to and the power that he promised. I want to know Jesus. And in this moment, it was my first time to Israel that I took this picture, and I remember sitting on this beach, and it was right in the place where this story happened. Here's how the story goes. As a matter of fact, let me tell you real fast, the reason that they're on this beach, and we could guess, it's probably, I don't know if you know, again, not a whole lot of people know Jesus, but as soon as he pops up from the grave, most people, if you ask them, they're like, hey, what happened to Jesus? Most people are like, well, he kind of, hopped around a few places and he disappeared. For about 40 days, he went around appearing to different people. For 40 days, he proved, let people see him, let people see the life that was in his blood, to see that I'm real. He ate in front of them. He walked with them. He talked with them. And then eventually, he literally ascended back into heaven. But in this moment, I don't know, I think my best guess is about 15 days, 16 days after his resurrection. And we're going to find ourselves on this beach. Here's why we're there. As a matter of fact, you guys have studied this already, but it says, Mark 14:27, it says, you're all going to fall away. Jesus got them in the upper room, and he just says, I just want you to know you're all going to fall away. And I just want to tell you, it's written. It has to happen that way. It says, I'm going to strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. But, Jesus says, here's the deal. I know that you're going to fail, but I'm not. So here's the thing. He says, after I've risen, I'm going to go ahead of you into Galilee. Go ahead. As a matter of fact, he starts appearing to people right off the bat. As soon as he appears to them, he said, hey, meet me in Galilee. Hey, guys, remember what I said? Meet me in Galilee. Hey, guess what? I want to see you. I've got a face-to-face meeting. I want to go back to our hometown. I want to go back to 11 of the 12 disciples are right from this place. This is right on the shores. It's Capernaum. You read your Bible. Capernaum is where they spent most of their time. All the disciples are from right here except for this guy named Judas. He's from Jerusalem. Everybody else, this is hometown. And he says, I want to go back to where it started. I want to meet you. I have a face-to-face encounter that I want to have with you there. Go there, meet me. I want to see you face-to-face. So, is how it goes down. In verse 1, it says, afterward, Jesus appeared again to his disciples by the Sea of Galilee. And this is how it happened. It says, Simon Peter was there. Thomas was there. Nathaniel was there. This is in John chapter 21. If you want to open up your Bibles, I'm just going to stay in there the whole time. I'll read it, but if you want to read it and mark up, you be you. I'm going to be me, you be you. So here's what we're going to do. It says Simon Peter, we got Thomas, we've got Nathaniel, and we got the Zebedee boys, trouble, those two. It says the two other disciples, and two other disciples, probably girls. That's super interesting. Anyways, doesn't matter. But two other disciples were together, and Peter says this. He's on the shore, and he says, hey, guess what? I know we're waiting around. I'm going to go fish. Now, for you and I, anybody like fishing in the room? Who are my fishermen? All right. Okay. I just got a house, and my house has a pond in the front, and it was like some old people were at the house for a long time, and they just like fed the fish, and so I've got like monster fish. They're like every catfish is like this big. My daughter's right back here, and so like she'll take her little pink pole, you know, she like cast out a hot dog, and she's like wheeling in like an orca, like it's just. You know, and the pole is doing this, you know. It's like the easiest fishing you've ever done in your life. And when we think fishing, we think like rod and reel, but I'm just telling you, that's not how this works. That's not how fishing works. See, they used to be back when, and this is the beach. I don't want you to miss this. This is the beach where Jesus first met them. This is the beach that 18 months later, after they got time to spend with him and go on trips with him and get under his skin and see who he was and watch the way he treated people and finally got to watch the way that he would heal people, the way that he would call out like just their destinies out of their bones. Jesus in this place, in that moment, after being 18 months friends, said, hey, guess what? I have a destiny for you. I have a purpose for you. I have a calling for you. I have plans for you. Happened on that beach. And in that moment, a bunch of guys that used to fish, I mean, that was like their enterprise. They would have a bunch of boats. They'd have all these big nets. And I've been down there. As a matter of fact, I've been out with some fishermen on the sea. And they do it the same way. You get out there and they cast a big net. And this boat over here and this boat over here and all these guys. And you got to pull them all back in. You got to wrestle them in. And he doesn't just want to grab a rod and reel. He's ready to just go back to the way life used to be. And I just think that's interesting. So it says he went out and he got in the boat, but that night, all night, and they caught nothing. So I just want to park here for a second. I want to talk about something and I got to be kind of careful because you guys know there's a difference between making mistakes. How many of you make mistakes? Make mistakes, right? How many of you are dating or have dated? Yeah, you've made a mistake, right? I'm just playing. I got you. And okay. So here's the deal, right? We've all made mistakes, but y'all know there's a difference between making mistakes and making mistakes, right? Like I want to, because we're going to see Peter, we're going to see him going back to his old name. We're going to see him going back to, just what life was before Jesus. You're going to see him kind of covered in a shroud of shame. But I want to talk about what got him there. Because here's what happens. I mean, mistakes, he's made plenty. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you remember, but right out on the sea, he was out and there's some waves and Jesus started like cruising by, and I love the text. Jesus was about to pass by, brother wouldn't even go stop. He's just walking by. He's like, what's up, suckers? And he's just going by. And Peter says, if it's you, they thought it was a ghost. If it's you, if that's really you, make me, I want to come out, man. I want to walk on the water. Jesus is like, all right, brother, come on. So Peter steps out on the boat and does what? Walks on water. But remember what happened? What did he do? Man, he made a mistake, right? He looked at the wind and the waves. You're supposed to look at Jesus, man. You're supposed to look at Jesus. Don't walk. You got to fix your eyes on Jesus. That's the whole point of this thing. But instead he gets afraid, he looks at the waves, and he starts to sink. This is not what we've talked about the last few days about his denial. It's not the first time he's made a mistake. Remember that one time when they were sitting there and Jesus it was like 3 years in, I don't know if you knew this or not, but 3 years into their relationship, and they're like bros and they're like friends, and they're like, man, I'm going to follow you to the end. And Jesus says for the first time that he's going to have to go lay his life down at the cross up in this place called Caesarea Philippi. And y'all, Peter looks at him and says, you are not going to lay your life down. And he lays into Jesus for even mentioning that he's going to go lay his life down. And Jesus literally says these words. He said, "Get behind me, Satan." Dang, you don't want Jesus saying, "Get behind me, Satan," to you. As a matter of fact, I would have like scratched that out of the scripture. I was like, let's just pretend that didn't happen. Remember that one time when he was in the garden? And they're up on the hill, and as a matter of fact, I've gone there in the middle of midnight. I had some like pretty rough, studly boys and college-age guys, and we kind of got out at like midnight, and we went down to the garden we just wanted to be there under the sun, or under the moon. And we went out one night, and we sat there, and I can just picture Jesus in this garden. These places are like real, and Jesus was real. And as he was standing there, and he was praying, and he knew the cross was like right there. I'm like hours before I'm about to lay my life down, and he's pouring out his heart, and he said to us, he's got the 12, he's got the 7, he's got the 12, and he's got the 3 that are like a stone's throw away. And he says, "Guys, man, I need your prayers. I need you to pray with me. Don't fall asleep, man. Don't fall asleep. I need you. And he comes back, and he's like, "Yo, for real, I'm about to die, and you're sleeping, man. I need your prayers." But they kept falling asleep, and he kept doing things like rebuke. Peter's made mistakes. Y'all, we all make mistakes. But you and I both know that some mistakes are just mistakes. You make them and you feel bad and you're like, "Man, I'm sorry." It's like and whenever, people are coming, I got a community of people, like we're always trying to lead people to Jesus, right? And we got a whole bunch of guys in our gym right now. I work out at Planet Fitness. Don't judge me, but super lame. Anyways, but in Planet Fitness, we've got like all these young guys that are coming to Christ. And when they come to Christ, guess what? They don't know Jesus yet, so they make mistakes all the time. And they'll be sitting there, and we'll be like literally talking about stuff, and talking about Jesus. He was like, "Man, that was the best effing Bible study." And you're like, "Hey, bro, how about we not drop the F-bomb?" And then sometimes they're following Jesus, and then they'll come up to me, and they're like, "Hey, am I still allowed to like just make out and have sex with my girlfriend? Is that cool?" I'm like, no. And he's like, "For real?" I'm like, "For real." And y'all, we make mistakes, but then there are these other mistakes we make, right? I've made them. They're the mistakes that lead us to shame. And the mistakes where all of a sudden, I thought God was speaking in my chest. I thought I was made for something different. Like I thought I could get past this. Like I thought I could overcome my heritage. I thought that God could really use me. But you don't know now. I've already tasted. I've already known. I've already seen. He's already whispered. And I blew it. I blew it. And all of a sudden, shame has this unique power of taking you back to where you were and who you used to be. Do you know that? Have you ever felt that? Because here's how it works. Peter's in a group. Y'all, Peter's in a group with a group of people that have seen him 3 times already. Ever felt like that? Like you're in a group, like you made a decision, like God showed up in your chest, like he whispered to you who you were and what your calling was, and you were excited and you were ready to tackle the world, but all of a sudden you go home and you're not who you thought you were. And you didn't change as fast as you thought. And these weren't just mistakes. These things have put you on the edge. And so here you are now, CIY. 2017, but your seat today feels different, doesn't it? Because all of a sudden, you know what you've done. You know where you've been. You know the heart you've had. You know you were supposed to go back with boldness, but you've been a coward. You know you were supposed to like live for him, but you've done everything but. You've protected your name. You've protected your game. You've protected, as a matter of fact, you thought you were going to go back and change the world. Jesus, Friday night. And what happened was you went back and you started buying the lies that were being whispered in your ear. And all of a sudden you're like, you know what? I'm just going to be a soccer player. I'm just going to go back to just playing football. Like, I'm going to go back to what I know. See, shame has this unique ability to put you on the edge of a Jesus crowd, but we're not really talking to you, we're talking to everybody else, right? I mean, shame has this power to get you back to your old name. That's, you know what? Everybody else, maybe somebody in here heard him and really responded and really became bold, but I've been here enough. I've heard that whisper of who I am enough, and I'm telling you, I'm not changing. And somehow I wonder if I ever will. So I'm back to no power in my life. It sounded great when a preacher said it from the stage that you can be free, that you can have no more addictions, that you can speak boldly, you can watch people's lives change around you, but you went back to your old name, you went back to your old purposes, you just tried to live and breathe and go back to the party scene because that's all that you know, and all of a sudden you start wondering, like, is this real, is this not? I don't have any power, I don't have any intimacy with him, I can't pray to him, I can't remember the last time I felt him in my chest, and all of a sudden I can come to stuff like this and I just feel numb, I feel zoned out. I feel like this isn't really cracking through, and something's wrong, and I know that part of it's because I blew it. Jesus did what he said he would do. I didn't. So you missed your shot. You should have been stronger. But you weren't. Shouldn't have given in. But you did. You shouldn't have gone there, shouldn't have clicked there. Just like Peter, it wasn't one time, it's just what you did. Lots of reasons why you did. Peter was the same way, right? I mean, when you really think through Peter's life, Peter wasn't the first one to blow it. As a matter of fact, Peter was in the thing and said, hey, Jesus, I'm in. I'll follow you to prison. I'll follow you to death. And I'm in, and I'm telling you, I'm here. I'll go with you to the end. And all of a sudden, there's this guy named Judas, and all of a sudden, he leaves. And then we find out that everybody else takes off. And here Peter is still trying to follow Jesus. And I'm kind of confused, but it feels like everybody else has left. It feels like nobody else is following. And I feel like I want to, but everybody else. Well, there's a lot of reasons we can walk in shame. I was sitting in a coffee shop literally yesterday, and I was sitting there, and I watched this little boy. He's kind of just this super cute, can I say chubby? He was kind of chubby. He was like this big, and I just wanted to squeeze him. He would have hated it, but he walked in, and I was sitting at this group of tables. Okay, it was like this big, and we're in this coffee shop, and there's like all these tables, and then I've got this little table, and it's like snuggled up right next to me, like if you were meeting with somebody, they'd sit here, and he's like gaming on his phone. He walks in, and he like sits down right next to me and starts gaming. I'm like, hey, bro. He's like, did you realize that? He doesn't even say anything to me. And he just looks defeated. And I have 5 kids. I got a sweet little girl in the back. You know that there's a brightness in people's eyes, but all of a sudden, I just looked in his eyes, and I just saw something different. And then the grandma comes over. I think it's the grandma, and she sits right next to him, and she just says to him, she said, hey, that's what you do when people are gaming. Your parents do that to you when you're gaming? You bunch of liars, you're gamers. So, when you're on your phone, how's that? She's like, hey, don't you hate it when people do that to you? Hey. She said, where's your dad? And he looked at her, couldn't have been 7 years old. He looked up, he said, you mean Nick? She's like, what? He said, he's my stepdad. He doesn't want me to have his name. And I just watched the boy put his head down. See, sometimes the shame game that's going on, it's something that you knew and you had a chance, but you blew it. But I'm just going to be real honest, and I'm one of these people. I'm a former abused kid. Sometimes the shame that you have to overcome, it's bigger than that. Maybe you've made some decisions past that, but the shame that you carry, the distance that you carry, the lies that you carry, it's because something happened to you. And it's so hard for you. So hard for you to believe what he says about you. Because you want to buy it for a second, but then you get back and you realize you're not changing. For Peter, it's kind of like us. The pressure kind of came out of the blue. I mean, here he is. I'm going to follow you to the end, and I'm expecting to get arrested. I'm expecting to get this, but you didn't expect. We don't expect that he's just going to be at this fire, and it literally says this coal fire, and there's only 2 places. We'll find out why it says that. But around this coal fire, he didn't expect. I mean, he's just warming his hands by the fire, and I've been in the place where they held his trial, and they're inside, and he can't get in there, and there's people coming by, and he can't figure out where his friends are, and he can't find out where all the other people that said that they would be with him to the end. He just wants to be warm, and I want to find out what's going on, and I need to know what's going on. And somebody starts asking me a question. Hey, weren't you one of the guys that was hanging out with Jesus? Like, man, get off me. No. And he's just no. I don't have time for that. No. Another guy says, hey, you're one of the people, right? I mean, you're one of the guys that would follow Jesus. Like, man, no, I'm not one of those. I'm not one of those guys, man. He didn't expect this challenge. He didn't expect this denial to come like this. He thought he was going to go in front of a court. He thought he was going to have to stand in front of a bunch of people and proclaim big things. But the changes, the things that bring us shame, come so much more simply than that. The things that come to us are you didn't expect to go back and find that boy to be so charming. You didn't see it coming. I mean, you were like thinking, I'm going to have to stand in front of my high school, and I'm going to tell everybody about Jesus, and I'm going to be bold, and I'm going to be like a lion, but you didn't expect your best friend to start the party scene and want you to smoke weed. Like, you didn't expect... You didn't expect this little thing to grab a hold of you, but now, just like Peter in that courtyard, he ends up not just making some mistakes, but some mistakes that keep him locked up with shame and just guilt. But see, then, y'all know, and I'm not going to stay. I don't want to shame you tonight. That's not why I'm here, I promise. And then, something happened between Peter's failures in this beach, right? I mean, between that fire pit where he is warming his hands and didn't see it coming, and then all of a sudden it dawned on him after he drops, I don't know what cuss word he dropped, but he dropped something to prove that he wasn't one of Jesus' followers. Then he looks up, and at this fire, literally he sees Jesus' eyes meet him, and all of a sudden he recognizes, I blew it, but I didn't just blow it. I mean, I blew it. Who am I? Why would he have ever said that I'm going to be the leader? Why would he have ever said that he could have plans for me? That's not who I am. All I do is fail. All I do is screw up. All I do is mess up. I keep trying to change. I can't change. I've had an addiction. I've gone to this place. I feel so empty inside. I feel so just nasty. I'm so arrogant. I'm so prideful. I love to sleep around. Whatever it is, there's something about you that's so big and it's so nasty and it's so dirty, and you've tried to change, and it just feels like about the time you want to change, and you just, something little happens that springs up, and it's like Jesus' eyes catch yours. Maybe it's happened this week, and all of a sudden, what you feel is shame. It just pushes you away. You start thinking, man, what in the world? And it just says this, verse 4 says, early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples didn't realize it was Jesus. Now, why is that? I don't know if you've been on this shore. As a matter of fact, I went early one morning. There's like a fog, kind of like, that's what happens around lakes and ponds. There's this kind of a fog. Maybe that's the case. Maybe he had a hoodie on. I don't know what's going on. But all I know is this, he stood on the seashore. You're welcome. On the seashore, and it says the disciples didn't realize it was Jesus. 100 yards away. That's a long ways away, man. Like they didn't, and he says this, he says friends. It's funny that this word, I don't know why I'm telling you this, this word friends is slang for friends at the time. It was children. It was like, what's up, brother? What's up, brothers? You're welcome. But he calls out to them, he says, friends. It's actually children, like, boys, fellas. He's like, fellas, don't you have any fish? They've been fishing all night. They're like, no. Leave us alone, because a lot of people would ask for fish. And so then he drops this line, right? He says, throw your net on the other side of the boat, and you'll find some. And when they did, they were unable to haul the net in because of the large number of fish. And then all of a sudden, they don't have to be that bright. You and I are putting two and two together. It says the disciple whom Jesus loved, John, the one that wrote it, he just loves to talk about. Anyways. And he just says this, he just says, man, it's him. Man, it's him. Like I feel it in my bones, and I love this, and don't miss this about Peter. And for some of you that are walking in here, and you've got shame, and you've got distance, and you heard the call once, but now you're just not so sure. Peter, I love this. It says, as soon as Simon Peter heard him say, it's the Lord, it says he wrapped his outer garment around him, for he had taken it off and jumped in the water. You know that's not how that works. You don't put more clothes on before you jump in the water to swim. You take clothes off. But he's like, I gotta see, you got the fit, and he wraps the robe and just jumps in the water. And you're like, hey brother, you're supposed to, swim buddy, swim. Just go. And you just feel this, and this passion, because he just realizes, which you and I realize in this room, that you know deep down inside, some of you tonight, that the only thing that's going to take away the shame that you're carrying right now is just enough. I just need to have a face-to-face with Jesus. Anybody need that tonight? So the other disciples were following in the boat and towing the net full of fish. They weren't far from shore, about 100 yards, and when they landed, they saw a fire of burning coals. Only 2 times that this is mentioned in Scripture, so there's the one where Peter was a member of and he denied. And then there's this one. There's no other mention. Now, I'm sure that they have a lot of fires, but John wants us to know that John wasn't the only one that found this a little funny. So here you've got Jesus with a fire. He's got some fish on it. We've got some bread. And the last time Jesus was, the last time the boys were fishing on the shore, Jesus called them to follow him. The last time they had a meal together and broke bread was at the supper, when everybody said, "There's no way we're gonna delete. We'll be there to the end. There's no way we'll ever leave you." And the last time there was a fire, a rooster crowed the second time. And so here Peter walks up into this, and it's like, this is where you called me, and this is where I made promises, but I couldn't carry them through. And this is also where you looked across from me, and you knew that I blew it, and I knew that I blew it. And then all of a sudden, and then Jesus opens his mouth. And Jesus, when they finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than all of these?" Maybe Simon could have been the only one to say this. I don't know. But Simon just says to him, "You mean these chumps?" No, I'm just kidding. I mean, these guys, here's the thing. You know how much I love you, Jesus. But it's funny because Jesus, when he asks him, I need to unpack 2 quick things. Agape is one kind of love. Every time Jesus says, when the first 2 times in this part, he says, Simon, son of John, and he takes him back. He hasn't called him Simon, son of John, since he called him. So he takes him back. He just wants to take him back. It's like when one of my kids, my daughter's back here, and anytime I'm getting serious, her name's Ava, and I'm like, when it's for real, I'm like, Ava Faith, Reagan, you're going to get beat. Actually, I don't. I let her get away with everything. The boys I beat, but here he is, face to face with Jesus, and Simon, son of John, do you agape me? Agape me means like this total, big, all in love. Do you agape me? Peter says, yes, Lord. He said, you know that I phileo you. Phileo means like brotherly love, like love you like a friend. So one's like a really big love, and Jesus says, do you love me like this? And Peter just says, yes, I love you like a friend. Second time he says, and you know that I love you. Jesus said, well, then feed my lambs. Again, Jesus said, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He answered, you love me with this big love? And he answered, yes, Lord, you know that I phileo you. And I don't want to get too nerdy, but here it is. Jesus is asking, do you love me with everything? Do you love me with everything? Peter, do you love me with everything? But all Peter can say is, Jesus, you know that my love for you has run into some snags. And I want to say that I love you with everything. But when I'm standing face to face with you, all I can think about is if I really loved you like that, then I wouldn't have denied you. If I really loved you like that, I wouldn't have secrets. If I really loved you like that, and that's how it works. If I really loved God like this, then I wouldn't lie. Then I wouldn't have lust. I wouldn't hold this hurt that was done to me. If I really loved you, then this hurt that I've caused someone else, then it wouldn't be a big deal. But I'm just telling you, I want to love you, and I love you, but I know that I don't love you the way you love me. I want to. I don't know if I can. So Jesus, third time, says to him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? But this time, Jesus says, do you phileo me? Do you have that little love for me that you know you wish was more? Peter says, he's a little hurt because Jesus asked him the third time, and he knows he denied him 3 times, and Jesus knows he's failed him. But he just says, Lord, you know all things. You know I love you. And Jesus said, like he said every other time, then feed my sheep. So brothers and sisters, here's part of what I wonder tonight. I wonder if there aren't a whole lot of us like Peter. A whole lot of us that heard Jesus whisper great plans into our ears. I did. I remember being 18 years old, and I was supposed to go to this university, Indiana University. Hey, I'm in Indiana. I can say this. You'll actually know where that is. So I was going to go to Bloomington, and I had everything lined up, and I had all my school paid for, and I was going to be roommates with a guy who's a football player, smoked a lot of weed. But anyways, And I kind of lightly loved Jesus, and I remember being at something like this. It wasn't at CIY, but CIY played a big part of my life, and I just remember for the first time I actually went out in the woods, and I was talking to God, and I just knew all these things. I'm a former abused kid, and you know what? Former people that have been hurt, they hurt other people. So I hurt people, and I made bad decisions, and I always kind of knew God, but I just kept my distance, but I wanted him, but I was on the edge, but I was trying to change, but I never could, and I could never measure up, and all these things. I remember going out in the woods, and God just speaking as clearly as he speaks to me, just said, Matt, I love you. And I want to use you. I want to put my spirit in you in a way that you're going to wake up every day and you're going to want to live and breathe and move for me. And I'm going to fill every day with life. And I want you to see what my eyes see. I want you to love people the way that I love them. I want you to take care of my sheep. All these sheep are these broken, hurt people. And you know what? There's a lot of broken, hurt people out there. And the Father loves them. And he's passionate about them. And he cares about them. And he wants somebody to go. And he wants somebody to stand up. He wants somebody to tell the punks that don't know about Jesus that their arrogance and their pride will never stand before the one whose eyes blaze like fire. Like, I want to use you, Matt. I want to use you. I want to use you. And I just remember sitting there in that woods and falling on my knees and just bawling like a little girl and saying, God, I would do anything. Just use me. And I don't know how you would, because I remember what happened to me when I was 6. And I remember the decisions that I've made in a back seat. And I remember the places that my mind has gone. And I don't know how to change, but I remember his spirit showed up in that moment and said, Matt, I love you. I have plans for you. I'm giving you a new name. And I have a new destiny for you. And I have a purpose for you. I'll never forget that moment, but then I walked away, and I'm telling you, I wanted it so bad. I changed my plans. I decided to go into Bible college. I said, God, just whatever you want. I don't even know what you're supposed to do. I wasn't raised around this. I had to lead my father to Christ. He was a former Special Forces Vietnam veteran that was very angry. All my siblings had been in prison. One of my sisters was a prostitute at the time, and I'm just telling you, I didn't know what to do, but he showed up, and he saved me. But you know what happened? I came back and I didn't know how to change, y'all. And this guy that wanted to give everything and said, I'll follow you anywhere, came back, and I never knew the little things that would grab me. I never knew it would be the little friendships and the little subtleties of being at school, and I wanted to have bold faith, and I wanted to tell people about Jesus, but the truth was I was a coward. The truth was that I denied him more than I talked to people about him because I was scared about what people would think of me. On top of that, sometimes when I went to parties, I just wanted to fit in. I still wanted to be just like everybody else. And so I just tried. But what that did to me, all of a sudden I have this moment where I can talk to him and he's as close as a breath. But now I know who I am, and I start wondering if at any point am I ever going to find my way back, and I just start praying. Maybe you said this prayer, God, I would give anything to go back to the beginning. To start over with you. And I just think this passage floors me because at 41 years old and been in ministry for almost 20 years, have seen God do these amazing things. I wish I had time to tell you. I'll tell you some of them because I think they're incredible. But what I used to think was that there was this grace thing that happened at the beginning, and then we've got to get it together. And we got to make all these changes. We got to be bold like lions. We got to do this, and then he's just gonna use us. We're gonna be bright. We're gonna be shining. We're gonna be perfect. And what I found about Jesus is this: just like Peter, guess what? It wasn't just the grace that came to me that was amazing. It's the grace that I wake up with every day that changes me. You know, I'll never forget that I was in one of the most arrogant seasons of my life. This is probably, this is funny me even saying this is 3 years ago. And I felt like my family was a wreck, and I didn't grow up with parents. I don't know what your parents' situation, I had parents, we all have them. But I didn't know how to do this Christian thing. So now I've got a family, and now I've got kids, and I just remember getting them all together, and I felt like we were having these nights. I'm trying to raise them right, and we're trying to do all these things, but that night, like, I have 3 boys and then this sweet little thing right back here. And the 3 boys I just thought were demons. Like, I just ready to cast them out, and, you know, we're, like, trying to do Jesus moments, and they're, like, running around farting on each other, and, like, it was I don't even know what's going on, and I'm a bad dad, and my wife is over, you know, we're just living in crazy town, and I'm just sitting there, and my heart's in a bad place, and I just feel like I've been arrogant, I've been distant, I haven't been telling people about Jesus, and I've been letting shame and the voices from the past come in my ear and tell me that, you know what, Matt, you've just blown it, you've just been in it too long, and you've said no to him too many times, you've made promises to him too many times, and Matt, this is the point where other people move forward and you just stay the same. And I remember in my prayer time that morning and just the Lord speaking to me. I don't know why he speaks to us when we're so far from him and when we feel so much shame, but just like Jesus over that fire, looking just right at him in his eyes, in the time that we've blown it the biggest and we've hurt him the deepest, he looks across from us and says, hey, do you trust me? I still love you. That thing that I called you to, I know you've blown it, but guess what? I knew you would. And my grace for you today, my power for you today, my intimacy for you today, it still stands, and I want to use you right now. And sometimes I just have to wake up and I feel these things. And I remember going before him and I felt terrible. I wasn't in like these flowery spiritual places, and he's given me those. But I just remember just the Lord saying to me, Matt, I want you to bless the kids. And I was like, brother, I don't know what that means. Like, pray for them like I pray for them. That's not what I mean. I want you to bless them. And so I brought them. Ava, you want to come out real fast? Is that okay, babe? She's sitting on a stool. This could be cool or not. Can you guys say hi to Ava? Yeah. So I was telling you I was going to tell those stories, okay? Okay, so I'm trying to figure out how to be a dad, y'all. But guess what? I need grace every day. I want to be godly. I like the prayers I pray for them in the future that I want for them. Y'all won't know till you know. But I'm not a perfect dad. And so the Lord says, man, I want you to bless them. So I won't forget we were up in Ava's room. And I pulled her up first because she's the youngest and all the boys were around. And I just pulled her up and I said, hey guys, I've been studying about blessing because I feel like the Lord just told me to do this. And in one of the ways that we get back in the game, when we feel like we've blown it, we have to say, okay, God, I trust you. You want me to be a part of your kingdom. I start that today. I walk in your grace today. I want to be a part of your kingdom today. And so I'm just gonna walk out and be obedient as if you see me like your son and everything's perfect today. And you want to use me today. And so I remember pulling these guys up and one at a time I started just blessing them. And I started with her, and the boys are always crazy, right? True story? Yeah. True story. And you're always perfect, right? Yeah, see? I like her the best. So, it's true. She knows it, they know it, long story. But anyways, I love my boys too. But I just pulled her up and I just looked her in the eyes and I just started telling her like all the things that God thinks about her and feels for her and how beautiful she is to him and the things that God's put inside of her that one day he wants to use, and that, you know what, even when she blows it, and she will, that if she'll turn her face to him, that he'll love her, that he'll redeem her, that he'll restore her, that there's no distance she can run too far. And what happened to every single one of us? We all started bawling like babies. My boys, and I'm telling you, the Spirit of God showed up in our house that night, and he did something amazing in our family. You can head back, babe. Thanks. Head out. Thanks, babe. Yeah, thank you. And I don't deserve that. I remember the time that we felt like my wife and I were in a weird place and we're trying to reach out to our neighbors. We're not doing really good and we're kind of frustrated at each other and we're doing all these things. But all of a sudden, we feel like we just pray and we're like, you know what, we're going to wake up today. And here's the thing. You know what, we've really messed up. We always mess up. That's just who we are. But we're going to trust that God wants to use us today. That God's going to use his grace through us. That it didn't just come to us and we better not mess it up. But that this grace of God that came to us has to come through us. So today we're going to wake up and we're going to believe that God wants to do something in our neighborhood. We started praying and the Lord said, put your for sale sign in the yard. We're like, that's not what we expected. We put the for sale sign in the yard. Nobody bites on the house for 3 months, not one bite. The neighbor from 2 houses down that we've been trying to build a relationship with, but we're terrible at this, comes down and says, hey, what'd you put your for sale sign in the yard for? And we're like, and I was just like, you know what, this is kind of weird, but we were praying about it, and we just felt like we were supposed to. And he said, man, that's really hard for me to believe. I always thought we'd be good friends. I'm like, what? Brother, we've never had a conversation. And he says, you know what? If you guys are going, would you guys want to come to my daughter's birthday party? It's this weekend. And we were like, yes. We go to the birthday party. We walk in. It's just them and their parents. We thought it was like everybody. We walk in. He introduces us as the friends that they've been looking at and watching and that they always thought they'd be friends with, but we're moving, and it's just really, really devastating to them. They wish that we would stay longer, and we're like, who are these people? And when have you been watching? This is creepy. And so we walk out, and I look at my wife, and I was like, is that why we put the for sale sign? She said, yeah. We walked right down, took that for sale sign out. 6 months later, we got to baptize them both in the tub. Fast forward 5 years. Oh, I'm not done, y'all. 5 years later, he ordains himself as a pastor, and he's one of the pastors at one of our campuses now, and he ordains other pastors. That's crazy, y'all. That's crazy. Y'all, I'm just telling you, I could spend time, and it's not because I'm awesome. I want you to hear this. I'm a crazy person. But I walk in planes, and when you really believe what Jesus encountered with Peter, that it's true that he doesn't need you to be perfect. He doesn't need you to have it all together. He's expecting that you're going to carry some flaws. He's expecting that you're going to blow it, but he loves you. And if you trust him, he's going to say, what did he say when Peter comes up? Did he say, hey, why'd you blow it? Hey, you had the perfect opportunity. Hey, did he shame him? Did he make him feel stupid? He said, no, do you love me? You ready to get back in the game? Because my grace is sufficient for you. And you know what? I know where you were last night, and I know what you thought this morning, and I know the fears that you have. But I'm telling you, I am bigger than all of that. I resurrected, and I give you resurrection life. And if you'll trust me every day of your life, I want to move through you. I want to do kingdom things through you. I want to advance the kingdom. I want you to wake up and feel that power and feel that intimacy. You're like, but intimacy, but I'm caught in a pattern of sin. I know, isn't it crazy? That even when you're stuck, even when it feels like you're a terrible person, even when your mind is locked up, that he still steps in and says, man, I love you. I don't care. I want you close. I want face to face. I want my presence in your chest. I want you. I laid down my life for you. Today, can we move? Today, can we just go? Can we act? Can we breathe? There's so many people that need to know that I love them. There's so many people. My sheep, they're right out there, and you walk past them every day, and nobody's feeding them, man. And I'm telling you, if you would start seeing the everyday, not that you need to be perfect, and it's all about whether you have this distance between him, but if you'd realize, guess what? We're all messed up. Anybody else? We're all so messed up, y'all. But you know what's crazy? He wants to use you. He wants you to feed his sheep. He wants you to love people. He wants you to tell people about him. He has grace for you. He just wants to breathe. And I'm just telling you, the King of the universe today looks down at you and just says, hey, y'all, you have been locked up with this shame thing for far too long. You've been distant from me. And I'm just telling you, man, I'm looking, and I love the way that he ends this. He says, very truly, I tell you, verse 18, when you were younger, you dressed yourself where you wanted, but when you were old, you're going to stretch out your hands, and somebody else is going to dress you and lead you where you don't want to go. Jesus said this to indicate the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God, and then said to him, follow me. And you're like, what? Jesus said, hey, guess what? You think because of this decisions that you've made and where you've been and what you've done, that you've pulled yourself out of my plans for you? Peter, you have no clue what I'm going to use you for. But you got to trust me. You're going to have to wake up the next morning after you were what you wish you never would have been, and say, Father, I love you. I'm sorry. Forgive me. And today, would you use me? Dear Heavenly Father, God, tonight I feel my words fall flat compared to your heart, your desire to, in the midst of our brokenness, our shame, our lack of change, our denial. Father, you have such a heart to know us, to walk with us, to breathe with us, to see us, to use us. So, Father, we know that there's a group here that needs to be reconciled back. They need to go back to that place where you very first whispered in their ear and said, I've got plans for you. And then we need to fast forward them through the last year, through the last 6 months of bad decisions, of deceit, hypocrisy, running, hiding. And God, would you breathe in their chest again? I still want to use you. I still have grace for you. Would you receive my grace? Would you trust me? It's in the powerful name of Jesus we pray. Amen.